Were on the street when I saw the second plane hit and the first building fall. Success is not an individual sport. It's very much a collective game. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And
Yeah.
I find that so true. And I think that ability to reinvent oneself is very much a Lebanese trait, but it's something that served me very well in my career as well. And so I'm very, very proud of how life has evolved and continues to evolve. Juggling, like any juggler, a juggler always drops a ball, right? But the juggler will pick it back up and juggle once again.
Welcome to Voices of Life, a podcast dedicated to celebrating the inspiring members of life and friends of life. In each 20-minute episode, we invite listeners to discover their remarkable stories, experiences, and insights of Lebanese professionals who are part of our global network. My name is Ronnie Hamad. I'm a board member and chair of the Advocate Committee of Life, and I'll be your host for today. Today, I'm delighted to speak with Dina Jaha, Global Head of Distribution at BNP Paribas. Dina's journey spans continents, from growing up in the UK, France, and Greece and Kuwait, to spending formative time in Lebanon during turbulent times. Her career began on Wall Street during 9/11, moved to London, led equity markets across the US, Europe, and the Middle East, and made history as one of the youngest managing directors at age 32. Dina Jaha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ronnie, for having me on today's podcast. I look forward to chatting and sharing our discussion with everyone.
Great. Dina, your upbringing across multiple countries, only brief schooling in Lebanon is quite unique for a lot of us. How has this global upbringing influenced your career and identity?
So I think similar to many people in the diaspora, we grew up in many different countries before my parents settled and found a home. The one common thread that I would highlight is very much like the life network that we've developed, is the Lebanese community that followed us wherever we went, that country and culture and that commonality. Growing up in various countries and then eventually settling in the Middle East made my ambition to go to the US even stronger. And so my focus really and my upbringing in my childhood was to get myself there. And at 18, I managed to get into the US and move.
Great. I have a very similar background in a way. Lebanon's problem started many years ago, and my father emigrated in the 60s. I was born in the US. I came back and then left again to Paris, came back, and then finally went back to the United States and continued my studies. So it's part of that whole diaspora experience. So you started your career on Wall Street during the events of 9/11. How did that experience shape your approach to finance and, in a way, resilience, given the traumatic events of that day?
Yeah, so I moved to the US as I mentioned and went to university there. And of course, like many Lebanese, I needed a work visa to be in the US. So you can imagine that starting my career and getting that to work in New York at a Wall Street firm in 2000 was very exciting for me.
Which firm was that?
It was DLJ, which doesn't exist anymore, bought by Credit Suisse 1 month after I joined the firm.
Oh.
So traumatic in and of itself. Wasn't sure if I would have a job, wasn't sure if my visa would transfer. Bought by a firm called Credit Suisse, which also doesn't exist anymore today. But as you mentioned, a year into my role and a year into living in New York, we experienced the horrific events of 9/11. We'd been evacuated from the building and were on the street when I saw the second plane hit and the first building fall. And what I can say to you that did in terms of my career and my experience is that it made me realize how far away the US was from home. And though on the first British Airways flight that was allowed to fly back from London to New York, when the airports open, my Lebanese mother was there.
Wow.
It made me realize that the divide was a little bit too far for what I wanted my career to be. And so 2 years later, I asked for a transfer to London to be closer to home.
Wow. So when the events of 9/11 happened, where was the offices of Credit Suisse or JPL?
So they were far enough in the sense that they were in Gramercy.
Oh, okay.
But because a bank was hit, all banks had a mandatory evacuation. And so we had to leave our building. And unbeknownst to us, assuming it was just a one-off hit, we actually walked in the direction of the World Trade Center
Oh, wow.
because of the number of friends that we had in the region. So I ended up closer to it than I perhaps would have been had I remained in the office, actually.
Yeah. So obviously, you've had an extraordinary successful career. You achieved the milestone of the youngest managing director at age 32 and led a hedge fund business across equities in multiple regions. What would you say were the drivers of your behind your success?
So I would say that similar to what I just said in terms of, leaving home, I felt that if I wasn't going to live with my family and if I was going to choose to live abroad, then I had to make it count, and it really had to be worth it. And so I would say that, like most Lebanese and like anyone starting their career, I really just worked extremely hard, knowing exactly what every milestone was and what I would need to get there. And in banking, it's quite clear what you need at each level. And so when I got to that level of managing director, I thought of I sort of felt that I had, done what I set out to do. But what I would say is that hard work, of course, success is not an individual sport. It's very much a collective game. And so surrounding myself with people that guided me, mentored me, good bosses all along the way was really crucial to my success. And my husband always says something to me that comes from a famous Canadian ice hockey player that I live by. And it's a quote that says, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And
Yeah.
I find that so true. So I try to take as many shots as I can. I'm not afraid of change. Whenever I feel that a person above me is not someone I aspire to be, then I switch roles, I switch regions. And I think that ability to reinvent oneself is very much a Lebanese trait, but it's something that served me very well in my career as well.
I'd love to follow up on this because I want to get a flavor of how you developed your structure of support. These mentors, these counters. I felt like I fumbled and bumbled throughout my career and trying to figure it out on my own. And it was only later in my life that I really understood it. And so you seem to have figured it out very early on, particularly this idea of beyond just mentors, but really people who sponsored you and really pushed you. Can you kind of maybe share some insights about how you developed this structure of support?
Yes, of course. So a month into my first job, as I mentioned, we got taken out and I wasn't sure I would have a job. And my first boss at the time said to me, Dina, don't worry about the name on the door, the firm you work for. Worry about the job that you're doing. Put your head down and work hard, and I will take care of you. And he was my first boss, so there's a little bit of luck in that. But I realized that if you do support yourself with someone that has your best interest at heart, and if you do then deliver, that's a good way to go forward. And so I always surrounded myself with people that, like I said, I aspired to be like, or that I respected, but also that support system comes from family, it comes from friends, it comes from people across other industries. And it's something that I carry with me today and that I hope I can also, pay forward, if you will.
Yeah. So tell us about your decision to leave banking briefly and set up VAR Capital, which is now an award-winning family office, and how that entrepreneurial experience kind of impacted you along the way.
Yeah, so what I would say is that I don't think I was born necessarily to be a banker, but through various circumstances, and one of them being the need for a visa, it's where I started. So I always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit to me. I still think I have that. And I had made MD, which to me was that milestone, as I mentioned. And a few clients approached me saying, why don't you look to see what it's like on the other side? So, I'd been part of a service industry for a very long time, financial services. But on the other side, you had the institutions and the hedge funds. And it was a bit of a dream of mine to set one of those up. And so I went and I did that. It used to be called Ayan Capital, actually. But like a lot of things in life, life hits you. I got pregnant. The timing was not right. And so though I learned a lot in terms of setting up a business, dealing with regulators, hiring, office space, you name it,
Wow.
I thought that coming back to the sell side was the right thing to do, but I was lucky enough to remain connected to one of my co-founders, who today is the R in VAR Capital, and it's a firm that has founded numerous very successful businesses, and one I'm very proud of and of their success.
Can you name your partner?
Uh, Rajat Sharma.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, you've had such an extraordinary career. I wanted to shift a little bit to, you've been involved heavily in philanthropic activities through the Son Foundation, and then founded The Kid in Her to showcase women leaders. Why is storytelling and representation so important to you? And tell us a little bit about these efforts.
Yeah, so for me, I learned early on that, a lot of us that work in finance are very lucky to be there. Of course, there's a lot of hard work that comes along the way, but it results in a group of people that are really very lucky and fortunate in a world where not everyone is. And so the Sohn Foundation, and the reason I felt so passionately about, being one of the people to bring it to London, was because it was a foundation that married philanthropy with finance. And I thought that that was a great crossroad for finance to do good in a time when many people
How did it do that?
So we raise money. We host a series of conferences around the world. In fact, the London one that we founded was the first international conference after the one in New York. Globally, we've raised over $90 million for pediatric cancer.
Amazing.
The one in London's raised a few million as well. There are now conferences in over 10 countries. And the way it works is that the founders of hedge funds get on the stage and pitch an idea to a group of investors. It's the first time they pitch it to an audience. And so people pay a lot of money to attend. And then all the money that we raise funds pediatric cancer. In London, we've been funding a great research project for the Great Ormond Street Hospital. And in the past, we've funded Cancer UK and the Royal Marsden. So that's the Sohn Foundation. And through the Sohn Foundation, and working with another Life member who was hosting the firesides for the women's event at the Sohn Foundation, Jumana Bersecci, who herself is a news anchor.
Yes. And one of our future podcast hosts.
Exactly. I learned the importance of telling someone's story from their childhood, because she always starts with asking that. And I realized that, I also love to hear about people's childhood journey, because good or bad, it helps shape who we are today.
Absolutely.
And so that was the logic behind founding The Kid in Her, if you will. It was to enable women, female founders, but not only, senior women in various industries, to have a platform to tell their story. And for us to be not only a platform for their voice, but a connector of funding, a connector of new clients, a connector of networks. And so that is why I founded The Kid in Her earlier this year, actually.
Yeah. You were also a founder of Life, an early member, one of the first members of Life. Tell us about that whole experience. I understand there was a 2006 event, one of the incidents of war in Lebanon, and there was this email that was sent to find out if there were any Lebanese in finance who were in Lebanon that needed to be evacuated. Tell us that story and how you got involved in that.
Yeah, so again, going back to Credit Suisse, which is where a lot of us original Life members worked, Paul Raphael had the idea following the 2006 war, and actually around the 2006 war, to try and connect all the Lebanese that worked in Credit Suisse in London in order for us to try and help get our families out of Lebanon at the time. He created I forget what it was called, but it must have been something like Lebanese at creditsuisse.com. And eventually, that grew into a network. And actually, the first Life employee, one of my best friends, left Credit Suisse to work full-time for Life. Originally, we were London. We were only finance. And I've been there from the start, where we've debated adding, different businesses. And now we have a few different regions. And so I'm very, very proud of how Life has evolved and continues to evolve from those early days of an email address to a podcast today.
Yeah. And actually, you're a founder of the Life's Women Initiative and a longtime board member. How do you see the role of networks like Life empowering Lebanese professionals globally today?
I'm a networker by nature. I love to chat, and I really believe in the power of human connection, because you never know who you'll meet. It might be someone that can help you. It might be someone that you can help. And really, for every connection, we make, I do believe that, it goes around in a circle and somehow comes back. So I'm very proud of all the networks that Life has created. I think it's amazing, everything from the Life pitch nights, the podcast that we're doing today, the women's events, as we talk about it, the mentorship program. And I think it's very, very important in any organization and in life, really, to have very, very strong networks. And I think we do a great job of that.
You made me smile when you say you're love to network. One of the things we did at the Life Academy, which was to teach people about interviewing and networking, is that my sense is that a lot of Lebanese are very good at talking to others, but only to people they know. And networking is really about going to people you don't know necessarily and walking into a room and talking to people you don't know. And I think learning how to facilitate that connection and being curious and discovering, I think, is one of the most critical tools, I think, and so I'm going to use that quote of yours and use it for the next time we do the Life Academy. Can you share some personal stories about how you juggled your personal life, career, kids, husband, and traveling through all these countries and being such a really busy woman doing philanthropic finance and family?
Yeah, sure. So juggling, I mean, like any juggler, a juggler always drops a ball, right? But the juggler will pick it back up and juggle once again. And so what I would say is that I can never give 100% to everything. And I've come to terms with that, and I think it's okay. And so sometimes my career will take 80% because I really need to be spending time with my family or something else that I'm passionate about. And understanding that and being okay with that takes time, and it's not the same for any two people. So how I've been able to juggle, let's just say, the things you mentioned may not be how someone else can or wants to juggle, but the biggest lesson for me really has been that it's okay to drop a ball every once in a while. Even the best do it, but you just pick yourself back up again, and if you're passionate enough about everything you're doing, then you find a way and you find the time.
Great. Dina, thank you for your time. This was an extraordinary conversation, as expected. Love to hear more about your activities and all the great things you're doing.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. I hugely appreciated it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for listening to Voices of Life, where stories connect us and purpose moves us. Join our global network to be part of Lebanon's brighter future, wherever you are. To learn more about life, visit our website and follow us on social media. Thank you.